Several years ago, I did a painting for a friend of mine of Union Square, and William saw it over here in the studio, and it began a conversation that we had about possibly doing a commission. William didn't have any demands about where to do it, or he said he would be happy if there were 3 people standing in line someplace, just because we wanted to have an interesting setting, but it was a question of where. And we considered all sorts of things and wanted to have sort of a picture of New York that was very much what the life on the street was. And the day that I came up with the idea of Grand Central, and I said, let's go take a look at it. And I had not been there I have to say, I probably had been there for 10 years. And when we walked in, I was just amazed at how beautiful it was. And I thought maybe if there was some way of capturing the beauty in there, that would be a wonderful thing to take on. And so I thought, well, this is a really good opportunity to do something that would express the vastness of the interior space and also the humanity that's walking there. And as I worked on it, I realized that the scope of this sort of soaring ceiling with the flag and the windows, it became something more than just the interior, to me, than just the interior of a train terminal. And so it was a challenge for me that I felt that it was a great opportunity to be able to work on something sort of on a vast scale. I did studies, drawings for the building, and then I wanted to capture what people really look like. So I took hundreds and hundreds of photographs to sort of capture who came through and how they walked and how they congregated. And then I spent about 6 months putting the composition together, and because I wanted to include as many different types of people that would be there, and I would say almost choreographing their positions, their poses, and it was a very complex balancing act between colors. And there were formal considerations and not really narrative, but things like this triangle of red suitcases, the balance of these oranges. Then I had these 3 boys here, this trio, and then this sort of counterbalancing kids who were living a sort of a very different way, facing the other direction with their skateboards. And I remember sort of, as an aside, towards the end, there was a figure that I thought I might change. And Betsy, my wife, said, you're not changing that, because once you change that, you're going to want to change something else, and the whole thing will collapse. So in those 6 months, I made decisions that I stuck with throughout the whole painting, because there was a very complex, on another thing, there's a very complex perspective of how the figures in size would shift as they went away. These figures here, you look down on them. It was a different way of drawing these figures. See if you can see him, you're looking down on him, and slowly towards the back, you're looking against them in a different perspective. So all of that had to do all of that before I started painting. I spent too much drawing it on canvas. And then in July 2010, I started painting it. I had it shipped to the canvas, shipped up to Connecticut, where I have a studio. And I started on a scaffold. Somewhere in the middle of this, I hurt my back, and so I can't stand up and paint, really. So I built a scaffold up in Connecticut, and I started painting. I realized that I had to keep everything in my mind, so because I wasn't going to paint a little here and a little there, I actually painted from the top all the way down to the bottom. So I started up here with these, I don't know what you'd call those circular windows, and having to figure out a language of having to paint like these architectural elements and the way that they shift in the light up there. I moved back to the city after 2 months, and I couldn't build a scaffold here. and this, I probably shouldn't say this, but I painted from here up, upside down. I had it turned this way. So all of the columns and all of the, even the chandeliers and even this were painted upside down and backwards, I guess. And I have a picture of it the night that we turned it over, and my wife was going, I hope it looks okay. I hope it looks okay. So then I flipped it over here, and then I've been working. Then I started with these figures here, because I didn't want them to be just little dabs of color. I wanted to capture that sort of individual life on how people were, dwelling here in this Cipriani's, as opposed to this bar over at the steak restaurant, and also the people coming in from outdoors with their cameras and the sort of outerwear. And so I started with this, and I think that there are maybe 105 or something figures up here on this level. And then I worked my way down. Throughout the whole thing, one of the big things was the light, being able to capture things that make it glow without, like with these, like the chandeliers. I wanted to have something that gave the essence of its structure, its complex structure and thing, but to have it done in sort of a free way. And so I did that, but then I had to do it again over here. And throughout the thing, like these, when you see these lights here, there's a certain level of impasto there, then a different color white, that I wanted to give the impression of what the different light sources are here in Grand Central. You see here, there's a beam from some sort of, light in the ceiling, I guess, there, as opposed to here on this portal. Oh, here, the clock face. This was a very important element to the whole interior space that had to sit here and anchor the composition without overtaking it. I finally, after months and actually years, have finished the painting, and there's the one thing that I hadn't done that I was saving for the very end, which is this sort of sign. Because I wanted it to fit in with the rest of the painting, and I had to see the rest of the painting before I figured out what I was going to put in there. And I wanted it to be very subtle, but I wanted it to have something that means something to me. And so it's a sign about security, and it says, don't assume it was left by accident. And I think that a little bit about the painting, that nothing here was done by accident. So I think for right now, that's how I want it to look. Let me just see here.
So that's the last
That's it.
part of the brush use.
That's it. It's brush and thumb use. Yeah, I think that's it. Well, actually, so.